see, particularly over the course of the past couple of weeks, is that more and more individuals are spending a majority of their time simply just collaborating. But compounding that challenge is that 44% of meeting time employees are finding is unproductive. If we kind of look from left to right, where search fits in is if you think about the way that people are spending their time, 20% of that time is effectively spent just trying to find information inside of an organization. To put that into perspective, assume that your organization has 5 employees. Effectively, you only have 4 working for you because the 5th person is spending the entirety of their week just searching for information. And then 59% of those individuals are really struggling to try to find information. And then on the far right-hand side, if we think about it, people are just switching tasks more and more. About every 40 seconds, we face some kind of interruption, whether that's from social media or whether that's just from a Teams chat or an email arriving or just searching for files. And the time it takes to refocus effectively is about 20 minutes to really get back in the zone and think about how to work and the work that you're actually performing. And with more and more people entering the workforce, one of the truly unique situations that we have right now is that we're going to have 5 generations of people in the workforce if we include Gen Z as a component of that. And everybody works in a different way. But at the same time, what we do know is we need to be able to work with information. Information is at the heart and soul of organizations. We're also seeing that that traditional IT role, which continues to evolve over time, is shifting from that service, from that systems administrator, that service-oriented kind of value broker. So what we're finding is more and more IT roles are really fundamental to empowering users inside of an organization. And how are they doing that? They're doing that through technology. And it's because employee expectations are changing. They want not only knowledge and answers, they don't just want simple data. And that's kind of where we feel that search fits inside of Microsoft 365. So as we thought about these business challenges over the course of the past 2 years, when we really started working on Microsoft Search inside of Microsoft 365, we came to realize that we need to do 3 core things and align to 3 core principles, our fundamentals for helping address those issues. The first one is ubiquity. We wanted search to be everywhere that you work. So whether you're working in SharePoint or OneDrive or Office.com or any of the Office clients, inside of Teams, inside of Outlook, or on your mobile devices, we wanted search to be ubiquitous. That's our goal of coherence, to bring search to all of the apps and services you're probably already using across Microsoft 365, including even Bing and Edge. The idea there is if we come back to that idea of context switching and how much time it takes to really refocus on the task that you are working on before that context switch, we wanted search to just work wherever you're working, so you don't need to navigate away from the application that you're already working in. In addition to that, we also wanted search to be flexible or actionable. So we understand that when individuals are searching for something, for all intents and purposes, they probably want to do something with that information. So the second core principle was let's make search actionable. Let's have individuals do something with those search results. They were searching for information for a reason. Let's prompt them with visual cues. So perhaps via a people search, let's help them not only organize that information around that individual that they were searching for, but let's prompt them with how they can contact that individual, whether it's starting a Teams chat or starting a phone call or sending an email. And then lastly, we understand that it needs to be trusted. So Microsoft Search is wrapped within the trust boundaries of Microsoft 365 and adheres to all of those same principles. And as I mentioned, that first pillar is kind of where we're going to focus a little bit of time as we get started here. We wanted one capability that powers every search experience. That's the idea of ubiquity. So whether you're in Bing or OneNote or Stream or in PowerPoint or in SharePoint, we want to deliver a consistent search experience across those apps and services. And the way that we did that is we started to align our search work on the Microsoft Graph, and we brought in a ton of experience from Bing's technology in order to help drive many of the machine learning capabilities. And then the other thing that I mentioned is we want search to be actionable. If you think about search experiences of the past, they were largely built upon term-based matching, technology that we started building in the 1970s and 80s. And in fact, about 90% of searches today are really one or two keywords. But we recognized for search to evolve, it needs to go beyond just results, and it needs to deliver answers. And there's a fundamental difference between those two. So our emphasis not only was ubiquity, but let's deliver great results across people, organization charts, groups, documents that are stored in the cloud, internal sites and tools, as well as disparate systems that you may have on premises or somewhere else in the cloud via our Graph Connector ecosystem. Some of the other things that we wanted to focus on too is let's make search a means for people to navigate the organization, whether that's wayfinding through bookmarks, Q&A, discovering Power Apps, sites and files, some of those traditional search experiences, but also groups, people's, conversation, location. And the reason we wanted to emphasize those is there's a relationship between all of these entities at the end of the day. So for example, in many cases, a document has a relationship to a site. A site might have a relationship to a group, which has a relationship perhaps to a conversation. So we really wanted to bind all these things together so there was affinity between the search results itself, so we could deliver that relevance that you've come to expect. And then the other thing we wanted to do too is just make it work wherever you're working. So not only across the desktop applications that you might use or the browser applications that you might use, but also mobile as well. So for example, with Microsoft Search and SharePoint, that actually spans not only SharePoint via the browser, but also the mobile application via the Find tab. And then lastly, we built this on top of the graph. So one of the key changes that we made when we thought about search at Microsoft, we took a step back. And if you think about the search journey, which largely began in the mid-2000s with our acquisition of Fast, we really positioned SharePoint as being the center of gravity, SharePoint on premises at the time, as being the SharePoint of gravity for search-driven experiences. So whether you're building a search-driven portal or you wanted to incorporate search into your own sites and services, SharePoint was really the key to doing so. And then if you fast forward a couple of years to the Yammer acquisition in 2013, one of the things that we were able to derive from that was graph, an understanding of graph via Open Graph, which came along with Yammer. So, looking across all of the technology that we had acquired over the course of time and our kind of vision to deliver this enterprise search experience, we did come to see that we had a lot of fragmentation when it came to search. So if you were looking for sites and files and that type of information, you typically search inside of SharePoint. But if you wanted calendar and attachments and people, you would search in Exchange. If you wanted conversations, you would search in Yammer, you would search in Teams. So while we had great search experiences across our apps and services, it was very fragmented. We effectively created these search data silos or these index silos. So the first step that we took in late 2017 as we really started to sit down and think about Microsoft Search is we need to build it on a platform that's unparalleled. And the first thing that we looked at is the Microsoft Graph. It's our foundation for both search and AI at Microsoft, largely because we recognize that for great search experiences, that data is critical. And the graph really afforded us a truly unique, powerful, and secure data set. I mean, to give an example, we have over 450 billion user authentications each month. Over 200 million Office 365 subscribers, 500 million LinkedIn members, and 2.5 billion Bing entities, and more than 1 billion Windows devices. So effectively, we just have this powerful and unique data set that we could harness in order to create great search experiences, working from the world knowledge derived from those 2.5 billion entities in Bing to the organizational knowledge, the 200 million Office 365 subscribers, and that individual knowledge, the 500 million LinkedIn members, as well as the 1 billion Windows devices. So, that foundation was the first thing that we looked at is let's bring search together around the Microsoft Graph. Now, that said, the other thing that we thought about was it needs to be native to the experiences and to the applications you're already using. So ubiquity up in the upper left, it's available across your apps and services. And then, moving towards the right again, privacy and security were, non-negotiable to us. So we built it within the boundaries of Microsoft 365. So you just natively inherit all of the trust and compliance that comes along with Microsoft 365. And then thirdly, the other thing too is the way that we view search is not only as a means of discovery, but kind of a way to improve productivity in your own team's effectiveness. And that's why as we looked, at traditional search experiences that delivered answers, we kind of wanted to transform that to delivering or results. We wanted to transform that into delivering answers, the bookmarks, the Q&As, the acronyms, both admin curated as well as AI mined acronyms. And then also the other thing was a unified administration experience. So, we recognized that there was some fragmentation there. In Microsoft 365 administration, you would administer your search experiences in different places. So in SharePoint, you had your own administrative tools. In Exchange, you had a set of administrative tools. So we really wanted to align that around Microsoft Search as well. So we also focused on admin coherence, and we're going to continue to focus on admin coherence, meaning identifying those duplicative controls or redundant controls and either removing them or bringing them to the Microsoft Search administration experience. And then, having recognized that a lot of our customers, many of our customers, and most likely majority of them have built search-driven portals, whether on-prem or in the cloud. So customization wasn't lost on us either. So, we really look towards SharePoint as being that foundation for search as well in Microsoft 365. So you can continue to build those search-driven portals. So you have customizable search experiences, whether you're using our P&P Modern Web Parts, or you're doing query alteration with our SharePoint framework, or if you wanted to build your own applications on top of Microsoft Search, we have universal search APIs via the graph. We also have ingestion APIs, so you can build your own connector experiences as well. So now if we kind of move towards the entities that are available to Microsoft Search is one, there's an obvious expectation that we should surface files, and we recognize that. So, leveraging the work that we did with the Office graph and our first application on top of the graph, which is Delve, we built search to deliver contextually personalized and relevant files, across SharePoint, OneDrive for Business, and the other endpoints that provide a files experience. But then we also wanted to deliver great people search experiences. So not only just finding somebody based on their name, but finding individuals based on their attributes. So, who are they within the company? What are they working on? What's their organization look like? How do I contact them? And we've made it really easy to search by nickname as well. So for myself, for example, you don't have to search for William. You can search for Bill inside of search and find the right and most contextually relevant information that satisfies your intent. And then also conversations. We understand that conversations have a relationship to people and people have a relationship to files. So another goal was to deliver relevant topics across Teams and Yammer chats. And you can see some of that via the Bing endpoint today. And we'll be bringing that to our other endpoints as well as we continue to work on search coherence. And then we get to answers, answers and resources. So not only bookmarks to help individuals wayfind the organization, but also giving them, quick access to tools and questions and answers so they don't have to click through and find a result. And then kind of moving towards groups, the ability to discover groups. And, in all likelihood, you're a member of many groups, so you can search across them by name, by their members, or the content that's shared. And then lastly, on the location side, addresses, maps, and directions to company buildings. So the idea is that search actually becomes a productivity tool versus simply just a means to discovering information. So if you think about where search is today, we have multiple entry points, and we're going to continue to invest in bringing search to more and more entry points. So you can search in office.com and you can get the same search scope across Microsoft 365. You can search in the SharePoint mobile app and you get the same default experience. You can search in the Outlook mobile app and you're going to get the intelligent search capabilities so you can kind of find content and people while you're on the go. And then search in Office, you can search across the ribbon and you get the same consistent experience and results. And then lastly, later on this year, we're going to start bringing Microsoft Search to Windows as well. So not only can you discover that content that's stored locally on your system or on file shares that are disconnected from Microsoft Search, but you can also discover the organizational results, already where you're working. So the idea there is, again, that ubiquity, that ability to have search available wherever you're working. So let's kind of take a quick look at search and SharePoint in OneDrive. So the good news is we announced that we were making search, Microsoft Search, generally available in November of 2019, so effectively at Ignite and then subsequently at Build. And we started rolling out search. We hit 100% of targeted release in the January timeframe, and we've now hit 100% of worldwide. So for those of you that are using SharePoint Online, and if you look at your modern pages or you look at OneDrive, the first thing that you'll probably notice is the search box has shifted away from the app canvas and up to the Office 365 suite nav. And that's kind of our visual indicator that you now have Microsoft Search available to that specific search entry point, such as SharePoint or OneDrive. We effectively transition the search box from the app canvas as a visual cue up to the suite nav, and we place it prominently in the center of the suite nav itself. And via SharePoint, whether you're using the Find tab in the mobile app or you're using SharePoint via the browser, you can get the same relevant content and instant answers that you would via either location. So the idea was as a coherent set of results that span both locations, and you can discover all of the same things that you would via office.com or elsewhere. So questions and answers, for example, or building locations. Very similarly, we transitioned the search box to the header in office.com. So if you navigate to office.com, you'll not only be able to discover content, people, and sites, but you'll also be able to find applications from within the organization. And then you can also bring the power of Office and the web view within the application itself. So again, we're trying to mitigate a lot of the context switching. And you get the relevant results not only across all of Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, the applications that you're already using, but the other unique thing that we do is when you're in a client itself, we also use search to deliver actions and services as well as content. So many of you have probably used reuse slide, or maybe you've clicked in the search box in one of our Office applications and we've prompted you to do something. So for example, if you click an image in PowerPoint and you click in the search box, we prompt you to either crop the image or move the image. So we try to give you navigational aids to understand how to work with that information. And we also brought that same search experience beyond just the Win32 apps to Office Online as well. So you can kind of discover all of that content across those via office.com and its intuitive start page, but also the Office Online applications themselves. So before I kind of work my way into some of the other entry points, seeing is believing, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. So we're going to go ahead and just take a brief look across a couple of my entry points, and I'm just going to share a new screen with you. And we're going to look at search in a couple of different places. All right, so here we are. Pretty traditional SharePoint page, as you can see. A couple of things to note about this before we walk through some of our search experiences is one, you'll notice that the search box is featured prominently in the Office 365 suite navigation. Again, that visual cue that this particular tenant has Microsoft Search available. And as you can see, we automatically tell you via the search box the scope of your search. So in this particular scenario, I'm searching within the context of the site. A couple of things that we do with Microsoft Search is we invested in what we call zero query, and effectively zero query is by a simple click in the search box, we immediately deliver contextually relevant information personalized for you. So whether it's news trending inside of the organization, files that are trending around you that you've recently accessed, and even people that you work with are immediately displayed inside of search. As you begin to type a search term in, another couple of things that we do is we give you immediate recommendations, but we allow you to kind of span that into more results. Again, I was searching within the context of the site itself. We also provide the ability to upscope to the organizational level. A couple of quick takeaways here. Again, once I type in marketing, I get the contextually relevant sites personalized for me, as well as files. And those could be files I've recently accessed, files that have been recently shared with me. Again, we derive signals from anchors and objects inside of the Microsoft Graph. An anchor, for example, is an individual or a group, and an object is a file. So we identify the relationships between those anchors and objects, and we put together that profile to deliver these personalized and contextually relevant results. So a few things you'll see here via Microsoft Search is across the top, we give you a number of different verticals. So in this particular case, we have our all vertical, which surfaces, again, contextually relevant information across the top. So in this particular case, we have sites, and working my way down, we begin to discover files, news items, as well as people that satisfied my intent. You'll also notice over here, I can immediately jump into searching that site. So if I find a site that's of interest to me, we can effectively allow you to reuse that query to search within the context of that given site. So we don't force you to navigate to that site. We allow you to search within the context of that site right from your organizational results. We have a files vertical. So beyond just the all results, you can narrow your scope down to just files. I could narrow my scope to sites, to people that satisfy my intent, to news items that satisfied my intent, to videos that satisfied my intent for those available. But then we also have our Graph Connector ecosystem. So our content connectors built via the Microsoft Graph will allow you to connect your disparate systems into the Microsoft Search experience. So in this particular case, I could search for terms across a ServiceNow knowledge base, or perhaps a media wiki, or an intranet website, or a file share, Azure DevOps, or even Azure SQL. So I can search across all of these disparate data sources to satisfy my intent. But let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of different things here. We're going to go back to the all scope real quick, and we'll look at a couple of different answers via search. So this was an example of kind of a traditional term-based matching scenario. So just typing in the term marketing and then working my way across those results and refining over the course of time. And the act of refinement, the easiest way to explain, why search didn't work so great in the past, regardless whether you're working in Microsoft 365 or some other platform, is because of term-based matching. Because with term-based matching, you would have to enter a query and you would have to continue to refine that query until you found what you need. And it's much like losing your car keys. You have to retrace your steps to try to figure out where you left them. So, you remember driving home from work, so you knew you had them because you started your car and you drove home and you successfully parked your car. But then you have to think about where could I have left them, and you start at your car and then you work your way into your garage and into your kitchen, and you continue to refine until you find your keys. And we want search to be able to find your car keys for you without you having to do that continual refinement. And that was the challenge of traditional search experiences. That necessity of refinement was not only challenging in respect to finding information, but if you ever needed to re-find information, you had to formulate that query in the exact same way as you did the last time. And the span of days or months or weeks could have passed since you last, successfully executed that query. So, query effectiveness was a challenge, and that's why we leveraged the graph and built this around those relationships that you have with information and people, so you can immediately get back to the things that matter. So a couple of different things with answers. Answers allow me to do a couple of different things. One is I can search for buildings. So you can create what we call locations in Microsoft Search. A location answer is triggered upon, a specific keyword. In this particular case, I could search for building 34, and I immediately get the address, and then I can get directions, and I can even, expand the map and drill down into it, or work natively within the map right here directly from search. So that's kind of a way of search being actionable. Another thing I can do is Q&As. And one thing you're going to notice in my query that was purely intentional is we also do spell checking as well. So if you looked at the query that I typed in parental leave policy as opposed to parental leave policy. But much like you're familiar with, searching the web, we also added what we call did you mean, or spelling corrections. So did you mean parental leave policy? But we also satisfy that intent as well. So as you can see, parental leave policy triggered a Q&A answer. So I immediately get the information I'm looking for. So we were kind of using search as, a mechanism to, help answer questions as well as help find locations in those two examples. Going, another step further, maybe I'm looking for something common in my organization. Microsoft Search, for example, and this is a bookmark. And this is another navigational aid that you can configure as part of the Microsoft Search experience. So you can configure bookmarks. If you're familiar with SharePoint, you can think of bookmarks as being synonymous with best bets. And again, it's a means to help individuals wayfind an organization. So that's another option that you can do as well. Or if I'm looking for an individual, let's say Patty in building 15. I can get a people result for Patty Fernandez. And as you can see, Patty's in building 15 in office 1102. That's one of the cool things about Microsoft Search as well. From a people search perspective, we're able to trigger search results based on an individual's unique attributes. So I could search for Patty in building 15, or conversely, I can search for Patty, the president, and I can find a result for Patty, the president, by navigating into people, which satisfies my intent. So we're going to move on to a couple of other places to look at search there as well. One of my favorite parts of search is natural language understanding, because we wanted search to be able to speak your language. So everybody's probably familiar with searching in Outlook today. So what would I do if I wanted to search for an email from somebody? In many cases, I would type from, Joel, for example, or I might type from Megan. And that's actually one of the most popular queries that we've seen inside of Outlook over the course of its history. The from query is probably one of the most popular queries that individuals execute by far, by a huge factor inside of Outlook. But, we wanted search to speak your language, meaning that I can say, and here's one of my recent queries, show me email from Kevin. And as you can see, I have all of my emails here from Kevin Carter, from our Falcon launch discussion all the way down to our planning meeting. So again, natural language understanding was one of the key fundamentals. So again, we wanted you to be able to talk to search much like you would talk to an individual. So even better than that, in Outlook, you can also do this today, my next one-on-one. And as you can see, I have an event tomorrow with Megan. So I've got my one-on-one tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So super easy for me to find events. Searching calendar was hard in the past. Not only did you have to navigate to it to search against its discrete data, but then it was difficult to find, those results. You really couldn't say my next one-on-one. You could search for one-on-one, which would deliver a broad array of results that you had to narrow down. A couple of other things that I could, potentially do is my next meeting. I can simply type that in the search bar. And, very quickly, I can find my next meeting, which is going to be on the 28th, and it's my market segment performance meeting. So there's some really cool stuff that you can do from a pure natural language perspective. So you no longer have to do the from Kevin, which again would satisfy my intent, but it's a lot easier to just speak to search using natural language. Show me email from Kevin. So we're going to move into one other place really quickly. So I showed you search in SharePoint. I showed you some of the capabilities inside of Outlook, but let's go ahead and switch gears. And I'm just going to go ahead and move over here real quick. And we're going to have a quick look at office.com. So bear with me for 1 second. Make sure I'm still using the same persona. And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to switch. I'm going to go to OneDrive, and then from OneDrive, I'm going to go to office.com. And as you can see from a OneDrive perspective, search again featured prominently right here in the header. And simply by clicking in the search box, again, much like SharePoint, much like Outlook, it'll deliver a set of contextually relevant results via our zero query methodology. So I'm going to go ahead, pop in real quick to office.com. And now inside of office.com, what you'll notice is, again, the search box is featured prominently in the header. And there's our search box, and when I click in it, I get the same zero query capabilities. So a couple of things that you'll notice that are a little bit different from zero query in office.com versus zero query in SharePoint versus zero query in Outlook is, while we had an objective to make search coherent across Microsoft 365, we also wanted to make sure that search was context aware as well to the application that you're using. So in this particular case, because you're searching in Office, we prioritize the results by applications, followed by files, then people, and then SharePoint sites. If you go back to the SharePoint demo I did and hit reverse, you'll notice that we prioritized sites, files, and news, and then people, and then applications. Very similarly, if you're searching in Outlook, we prioritize email, conversations, meetings, and then people. So we prioritize results, and we try to be aware of the individual's context, because in all likelihood, if you're searching in Office, you're probably not trying to discover a SharePoint site. You're probably trying to find a file. And the beauty part is, as part of that objective for us to build search coherence, regardless of where you're working, we're going to deliver, the same great set of results. So I get my building result, as you can see here, natively within office.com, but you'll notice I also have my verticals available to me as well. My video vertical, my ServiceNow, my Contoso catalog, those same verticals that existed inside of SharePoint. Again, the idea is recognizing that everybody works differently. One of the things that we wanted to be able to do was ensure that regardless of where you're searching, we're not going to have to force a context switch upon you. So we allow you to discover information trending around you across your organization and beyond, regardless of the app you choose to work in. So I'm going to switch gears. We're going to move to a new browser window, and I'm going to show you a few more really cool things that you can do with search. And this one's a little bit more forward-looking, but bear with me for a moment. And I'm going to bring up a new share. And as I mentioned, search coherence for us goes beyond just the applications and services that you're familiar with inside of Microsoft 365. We wanted to bring, those capabilities to everywhere that you could, potentially search. So whether you're searching via the address bar and Edge, or you're searching inside of Bing, we wanted to deliver the same organizational results to you. So to give you a couple of examples of a few things that are really cool is I'm going to kind of drill back into that people scenario. So you saw me search for Patty the President, Patty in Building 15. But, let's say I'm having a conversation and somebody says, you should talk to Sophia. She's one of our engineers in London. So, I could start with searching for Sophia, for example, and right via the mainline results, I'll get a result for Sophia Miller, the Sophia that's most contextually relevant, that satisfied the intent of my query. So this is the Sophia most relevant to me. But I recall them mentioning that Sophia is an engineer. So I can refine that to be Sophia the engineer. So now I get Sophia Vigaris, who's the most contextually relevant engineer that satisfies the intent of my query, again, based upon those signals derived from the relationships of anchors and objects. But, kind of thinking back even a little bit further, I also realized that they did mention that Sophia's in London. So I can take another step and say Sophia, the engineer in London. And now I have Sophia Mota, who is our director of engineering for my team, Microsoft Search, Assistant, and Intelligence. So, we're able to take those attributes and make them part of a search experience. And this works across our entry points. I showed it to you in Office.com or SharePoint, and here's another example via Bing. But, I'm seeing this acronym here. And, if this wasn't my organization, maybe I want to know what MSAI even is. So, another thing that I can do is trigger an acronym answer. Define MSAI. So I've got 4 results. As you can see, Microsoft Solution Accelerator for Intranets. Well, doesn't seem to make sense for that particular query, but you'll also notice Microsoft Search, Assistance, and Intelligence. Now here's the really cool part that we're introducing to Microsoft Search. Not only can you create acronyms, but we also AI mine acronyms. So we reason across the information that's stored in emails and the information that's stored in files. We locate acronyms and we populate acronym answers for you. And you can go in and look at the acronyms that we've mined, and you can curate them and then approve them for publication as a search administrator or editor. So as you can see, this particular acronym was derived from a file, as well as this particular acronym here. So as you can see, it explicitly says from file. Or, I could say, I'm new to the company and everybody's talking about this thing called MAL. What is this MAL thing? So I could say define MAL, and I get an answer here, monthly active users. Or it could also mean MSA auth, which comes from the Microsoft Search and Bing check-in from last February. But let's kind of look at some of the cool tech. If you saw some of our announcements via our AI at Scale initiative that Kevin Turner talked about, or Kevin Scott talked about at Build, one of the things that you've probably saw was this AI at Scale initiative. And one of the things that we did is, if you look at natural language generation, we really see NLG is kind of redefining search experiences and even beyond. So we introduced last year a concept that we call Project Turing, which is our natural language generation solution, or otherwise T-NLG. And if you think about the largest NLG model that existed before we introduced Turing, it was 1 billion parameters. When we introduced Turing, we have over 17 billion parameters that's part of our natural language generation model. And it outperforms state-of-the-art, on many downstream natural language processing tasks. And also, at the same time, our Turing natural language model, reached human parity via the Stanford SQUAD test. And effectively what SQUAD is it's a question answering data set. Many of you are probably familiar with Alan Turing and the Turing test. Well, you can think about the SQUAD test as being very similar. Basically, there's a set of crowd workers who look at Wikipedia articles, and that's kind of the data set. And what they do is they're posed a series of questions, and they have to answer those questions. And some might not even be answerable. But basically what we were able to do is, using our NLG algorithm, Turing, that model in particular, we were able to achieve human parity. And to give you an example, of how that works is, I can ask search now, how much, for example, can I spend for a meal during travel? So there's a couple of key things I want to show you really quickly right here. One is I used the term, how much can I spend for a meal during travel? Natural language understanding in this particular case. A couple of things that you can see here is we triggered a result based on expenses. So we understand semantic meaning as well. So we know that how much can I spend for a meal during travel is synonymous with expense policy. So, we understand that as well. A couple of other things that you'll see here is not only do we have natural language and semantic understanding, but we also have machine reading comprehension, and this is where NLG comes in. So expenses while on a trip. During a business trip, you're entitled to reimbursement for lunch and dinner at a maximum of $30 per meal. We'll reimburse only your portion of the bill if you're traveling with a non-employee, so make sure to separate your bills or ask for separate receipts. This wasn't an answer that was created by a human. This was an answer that was created by our model that was derived from our travel policy document. So we're able to reason across documents and extract the right paragraph from that document that satisfies the intent of the searcher. So we effectively took information from a document and turned that into an answer using our NLG model. So it's really cool stuff that you're able to do from an NLG perspective. And this is actually our semantic search private preview that we have ongoing right now. One quick one before we run out of time as well, you can also search for Power BI, as I mentioned. So you can create answers in Microsoft Search today for Power BI answers. So I can say Power BI retail reports and quickly get an answer for all of the Power BI retail reports that I have access to. Or if I wanted to, again, we decided that search needed to be an actionable experience. Let's say monthly retail stores overview might be a report I'm interested in. And I know that report exists, so I'm just going to search, and I found the monthly retail stores overview, but I get a quick snapshot here, and I can immediately launch into Power BI. And that's kind of an example of, creating answers and making search more actionable. And then I have all of the relevant Teams conversations, files, and sites that might, be useful in respect to the data I'm trying to retrieve. So very quickly, we're going to go back to slides and move on and talk about some of the other entry points before we wrap up here in a few moments. So I'm just going to go ahead and reshare with you. And we're going to come right back to the slideshow. So we had a quick demo of a couple of the search experiences across Microsoft 365 apps and services, inclusive of Bing. So you saw search in SharePoint, search in Office.com, search in Outlook, Zero Query in OneDrive, which delivers that same great personalized, contextualized result set. But then you also saw search in Bing in some of the NLG work that we're doing as well. Now, if you're interested in learning more about AI at scale and how we're using natural language generation in the context of search, not only in Microsoft Search via Bing or SharePoint or OneDrive or Outlook, but even in our client applications and beyond, if you navigate to the tech community and to the Microsoft Search blog, the top 3 most recent posts provide detail on our AI at scale initiative, how you can get involved, how you can leverage our open source deep speed model, as well as learn more about how we're using this powerful experience across search at Microsoft, not only via the examples I gave you, but even how we're using it inside of Word via Smart Find or suggested replies inside of Outlook in the mobile app, and how we use natural language understanding in those as well. So again, I gave you an example of Outlook, so I won't spend a lot of time on this slide in the interest of time. But again, as you can see from an intent perspective, we really want to help you from a search success perspective. So we want you to be able to search across information. We want to give you proactive recommendations, but we also want to help you find the right information faster by allowing you to speak to search like you would speak to any person. Also, Microsoft Search in Windows. So we're going to be bringing later this year Microsoft Search to Windows. So not only can you find all of those local files that you have in your connected file shares, but you can also search across your organization's content and get the same great results, whether searching an individual's organization, the person themselves, the files trending around them and you, as well as any calendar items that may be of interest as well. So really delivering that same fundamental search experience via the Windows 10 search box. And as I showed you earlier, the same great results, whether you're searching in Bing and Edge. You can search across your organization's content if you're authenticated via Azure Active Directory. Lastly, not a lot of time we'll spend here, but we did want to emphasize unified administration. So not only can you administer the search experience as a search administrator or an editor, but we also give you a great set of analytics that you can use as well. So you can see the trending queries, the popular queries, you can see those abandoned search experiences. So effectively, we give you today a sufficient enough amount of analytics to where you can do your own SSR, your search success rate analysis. And then from a customization perspective, SharePoint is definitely still the center of gravity when it comes to custom search-driven portals. If P&P, modern search web parts, again, SharePoint frameworks, create your query alterations, create verticals via our graph content connectors. And now that we've rolled out search worldwide for SharePoint, we're going to be introducing custom refiners, scoping controls, so you can truly create those faceted search-driven experiences that you're familiar with from classic SharePoints or SharePoint experiences. And then display templates were, a concept that we used to have from a search-driven portal perspective in the past. We're transitioning that to adaptive cards, so you can use those to customize the search layout. So very quickly, from a search administration perspective, again, we deliver a unified console. As you can see over here via the illustration, we show you a variety of analytics, whether that's top queries, abandon rate, so you can, again, take some recommended actions that we provide so you can improve the search experience. You can help manage security, privacy, all of that centrally via the Microsoft Search Administrative Console. From a customization and extension perspective, you can build using our Graph API and the SharePoint framework. And actually, if you visit github.com, whack Microsoft-search, we have a variety of samples that are purpose-built and ready to use that you can reference. So whether you're looking to do something with our framework or whether you're looking to build your own custom application, leveraging our search stack, we have a variety of examples that you can take advantage of, whether they're related to SPFX or our universal search API in the graph. So graph connectors. One of the things that we recognized is that for search to work, not only does it need to deliver great results across your organizational data, but also connects your disparate systems. So from Microsoft, we have 6 connectors in public preview: FileShare, SQL, ServiceNow, MediaWiki, Enterprise Websites, and Azure Data Lake Services Gen 2, as well as connector API, so you can roll your own. But we also have 2 new upcoming connectors that we announced at Build, both for Azure DevOps and Azure SQL. And then we've also improved the ingestion pipeline. But we also have well over 100 partners. There are 100 connectors delivered by our great partners, such as BA Insight, Accenture, and Raytheon. So, we have truly unique coverage from connecting your disparate systems and bringing that wealth of data into Microsoft Search. So, very lastly, again, security is we hold sacrosanct, much like we do performance. So, all of those same security measures applicable, transparency measures, compliance measures, and privacy and control measures applicable to Microsoft 365 as a whole are applicable to Microsoft Search as well. Because we built Microsoft Search within the boundaries of Microsoft 365. So, with 1 minute to spare, just to kind of wrap, and I know we covered a lot of content in a very little amount of time, and I could talk about search forever because there's a ton of cool stuff in our pipeline. But again, the way that we thought about search across Microsoft 365 and the way we're going to continue to think about search
I wasn't sure what the protocol was.
Ubiquity, meaning available across all of our apps and services, Microsoft 365 and beyond. Okay. Actionable, going beyond just results and delivering answers, and then prompting you to do something with those results.
Okay.
So from people to organizational charts to groups to sites, tools, documents in the cloud, conversations, Power BI reports, and more. That's going to be part of it as well.
Oh,
there's a couple of places where you can learn more about Microsoft Search. So we have a customer resource center at aka.ms.
Oh, not my video. I'm
sorry. Search.
Okay, but I didn't see.
You can get a ton of great adoption resources. We have search illustrations. So if you want to create your own kind of customized search presentations, we have pre-built illustrations. We also have slides that you can download, very similar to this deck, to quickly get you started, along with the adoption and usage resources. We try to update that at a minimum of a monthly basis. We have our blog, which is same Microsoft Search, then /blog. But then you can also learn more about our AI initiatives at Microsoft.com/AI, all of which is applicable
not
to
on
search
the big screen, just the small part.
So one of the questions that I commonly get that I'll leave you with is, okay, so Microsoft Search is now in SharePoint, OneDrive, Office.com. It's coming to the Office applications.
I think I'll turn the
camera
camera
to Windows
off.
10. What about Teams? Well, if you recall from Build, we announced contextual search in Teams at Build. That is all driven by the Microsoft Search experience. So over the course of this upcoming year, we're going to continue to invest in bringing the Microsoft Search experience to Teams as well. So effectively, we're going to make it to where you don't have to leave the applications that you love to get a great search experience. So if you have an affinity towards SharePoint, you're never leaving SharePoint, you can find all the great results there. We'll bring the additional verticals there as well. If you live inside of Teams on a day-to-day basis, we're bringing the search experience there so you can get that great set of results across your organization. Ryan, are you still there? So again, coherence, not only across our apps and services, but within the apps and services is super important to us for Microsoft Search. So that said, we're right on cue. It is 5:50 p.m. here in Seattle. I want to thank everybody for joining this evening. I want to thank everybody who worked diligently, hard, long nights and days to put together this event. It's truly been awesome. I've been able to watch a ton of sessions throughout the course of the day as well. So thank you to the producers. Thank you to all of the partners, and a special thank you to everybody who's joined, because it's not possible without you. If you do have any questions, you can hit me up at William Baer, B-A-E-R, on Twitter. Happy to answer them there. Otherwise, if you have a question you don't want to ask in the public domain, and you just want to get a quick answer, you are more than welcome to email me at wbaer@microsoft.com. And I'm more than happy to answer your questions via email as well. So until next time, thank you very much. Thanks for joining me in my home this afternoon. I want to thank everybody at their homes who joined me to watch. Thanks to Joel and Ryan and everybody who worked hard to put this together once more. Bye.